All right, today we're going to dive into a book that is, without a doubt, one of the most important reads of the 20th century. I'm talking about Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. It's a book born from the absolute worst of humanity, yet somehow it gives us this incredible message of hope. So let's get into it. This book is really two things at once. On one hand, it's a gut-wrenching memoir of Frankl's time in Nazi concentration camps. But on the other hand, it's the very foundation of his game-changing psychological theory, which he called logotherapy. He literally used his own unimaginable suffering as the proof that life always has meaning, no matter how dark things get. And this quote, wow, it just perfectly captures that moment of arrival at Auschwitz. Think about it. He and the other prisoners were stripped of literally everything. Their clothes, family photos, their hair, even their names were replaced with a number tattooed on their skin. And in that moment, he says, when there was nothing left to lose, this strange, grim sense of humor was all they had. So this brings us to the big question, the one that this entire book is trying to answer. When everything you have, everything that makes you you on the outside, is just gone, what is left? I want you to hold on to that question because Frankl's answer is the key to this whole thing. So to really understand the depth of Frankl's discovery, we have to go back. We need to see the crucible he was forged in and understand how the camps were specifically designed to break a person down to nothing. You see, before the war, Viktor Frankl was a big deal. He was a brilliant psychologist in Vienna, had his own department, was developing these incredible new theories. But he was also Jewish, and in Nazi-occupied Austria, none of his achievements mattered. In 1942, his entire world, and the world of his family, was just shattered. The loss was just relentless. In the span of about 2 years, Frankl's entire family was gone. His father, his mother, his brother, his wife. And as if that wasn't enough, they took the manuscript he had sewn into his coat, his entire life's work. In a flash, his past, his present, his future, all of it, just wiped away. And here's what's so amazing. Even in the middle of all this horror, the psychologist in him never shut off. He was constantly observing, analyzing himself and the other prisoners, and he started to see a clear pattern, a 3-stage psychological journey that almost every prisoner went through. So what were these phases? Well, first came the shock of admission, just total disbelief. Then that shock gave way to a deep, prolonged apathy, a kind of emotional numbness that was essential for survival. And finally, for the very few who made it out, there was the phase of liberation, which surprisingly was often filled with bitterness and a tough readjustment to life. Let's focus on that second phase, apathy, because it's so important. It was a defense mechanism, plain and simple. To survive seeing the beatings, the starvation, the death, every single day, you had to build a protective shell around your heart. You had to become numb. Because if you let yourself feel the full horror of it all, it would have completely destroyed you. Which brings us right back to that central question. When you were treated like you're not even human, when you've lost everyone and everything you've ever loved, and you're just numb inside, what part of you is still you? What's left? And this is the answer. This is Frankl's profound, world-changing discovery. The Nazis could control his body, his food, where he slept. They could decide if he lived or died, but they could not control his inner world. He realized that the one thing, the very last thing that can ever be taken from you, is the freedom to choose your attitude. And that single, powerful insight became the bedrock for his entire approach to psychology, which he called logotherapy. And what's so powerful is that he didn't dream this up in a comfortable office. He lived it. He discovered it in the hell of Auschwitz. So what is logotherapy? Well, think of it this way. You had Freud, who said we're all driven by a search for pleasure. Then you had Adler, who said it's all about a search for power. Frankl came along and said, nope. You're both missing the biggest piece. He argued that our deepest, most fundamental drive as human beings is our search for meaning. We need a why. And when we can't find that why, we fall into what he called an existential vacuum. You know that feeling? That sense of boredom, of aimlessness, of, is this all there is? Frankl saw this as a massive, widespread problem in modern life, long after the war was over. So how do we fill that vacuum? while Frankl gave us a kind of roadmap. He said there are three main ways to discover meaning. First, through work, by creating something or accomplishing a task. Second, through love, by experiencing something beautiful, or more importantly, caring for another person. And third, and this is the big one he learned in the camps, by the attitude we choose to take when we're faced with suffering we can't escape. This all leads to the final and maybe the most demanding part of Frankl's message. It's this idea that real freedom isn't just about being free from things. It's about being responsible for something. See, Frankl worried that we get obsessed with freedom and it can become selfish. He argued that freedom is only half the picture. By itself, it can actually be kind of meaningless. The other half, the part that gives it purpose, is responsibility. I love this. He actually suggested that to complement the Statue of Liberty on the East Coast, America should build a Statue of Responsibility on the West Coast. What a powerful image, right? It's this perfect symbol that our liberty isn't complete unless it's paired with a commitment to something beyond ourselves. In the end, Frankl just completely flips the question of the meaning of life on its head. He says we have to stop asking what we expect from life. Instead, we have to start asking ourselves, what is life expecting from me? So I'll leave you with that to think about. In your life, with your challenges, your opportunities, what is life asking of you right now?